Now, hold on a minute. Did you just get back from doing something awesome in Montana? What did you just do?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was awesome. It was so fun.
There was a goat battle,
Yeah.
a first female time up Granite Peak. Tell us, what the heck have you been up to this weekend?
I just went up to visit friends in Montana, and my friend at the last minute suggested, like, he's like, "Oh, have you ever been up Granite Peak?" And I was like, "No, I've never been up Granite Peak." And he's like, "Sweet." And we looked it up on fastest known time, and there's no women's time listed from the Mystic trailhead. So we decided to like kind of go for a fastest time on it. We went a slightly different route than what is on the fastest known time site.
Okay.
What's currently on there, the guy who has the time basically skipped all the switchbacks and went straight up a scree field, which I guess is another route, which we ran to and looked at, and we were like, that looks weird. It kind of just looked like a shortcut in a very strange way. And I was like, huh. So we just like ran back to where the switchbacks go and ran the switchbacks, but that added on like 11 miles, which was a lot of time. So I don't know how that works. Like we got to the summit, it was awesome. Yeah, we had a goat battle. And but yeah, as far as records go, like there's no time listed from that side of the mountain. So I'm not really sure like how that works. But I submitted an entry to the fastest known time anyway.
Well, good for you. And the goat battle looked pretty epic.
Oh my God.
That was not a young goat. If you guys check out Kelly's Instagram, it's always like very scenic, very entertaining. But this particular goat, it was like you shall not pass type of deal. What happened there?
Yeah, so we got like basically up to like getting onto like the summit itself, like getting onto the technical climbing, and suddenly this like male goat like pops around the corner, and we're like, oh hey. And then normally you'd think they'd kind of move away, but he went straight for us, and we were kind of like doing this dance with him, like trying to keep like our distance, but like we only had like a ridge line to work with, so we were like and he just kept like following us and then like climbing up around us and looking down at us, and like we were kind of doing this like funky little ridge dance, and then he'd like kind of move away, and then he'd pop back out and be like, oh hey guys, I'm still here. And we didn't know if he was going to charge us, if he was like curious. We did the pee tactic. Like my friend was like, oh God, like, cause he was following us across the snowfield. Like he just was following us, and he's like, okay, I'm going to pee. Cause apparently goats really like pee.
Right,
So
sure.
he's like, all right, I'm going to pee. So he peed. It only stopped the goat for like 30 seconds. And then he was like right back behind us. He followed us almost to the summit.
Man.
And like there's this really cruxy part, like the crux of like Granite Peak right now is the snow bridge you have to cross that's really steep.
Okay.
And so we were like kicking in steps, and like I was like, oh man, I think we lost him. Whew. Okay, cool, because like we were kind of moving slow across this like ice field,
Yeah.
And I forgot my ice tools, but I borrowed a whippet, so we were using whippets to, just in case, and like kicking steps across the snowfield. And my friend gets across, and then it's my turn, and then suddenly the goat appears, and he is making his way straight for us across, like he's starting to set foot on the snowfield to come at us. And I was like, oh no, like I'm on this super technical part of the route, and like it's frozen and it's really steep and like it's scary, and I'm like, oh no, and like made it across. And we were like, okay, but we summited and it was awesome, but then we were like, oh God, when we come back down, like we're gonna run into the goat again.
No.
And we did.
Oh my gosh, just waiting for you guys. Next level. Well, what a weekend. Now, this one was a trip with a friend, but we're going to talk about the WURL and some other stuff that you've done that's awesome, but you do a lot of really, really cool stuff solo, and you draw these lines. Death Valley is one of them, where you go like from this line that maybe it's out there or maybe you create it. Tell us a little bit about the Teton Center Punch and maybe Death Valley. Those are kind of things that you've really gone after, and how have you gone through that creative process of coming up with this stuff?
Well, Death Valley was an established route. I was looking for something to do in December, like kind of late season. I was like, well, I have all this like, this really good like foundation for like endurance right now. Like I haven't really gone into the winter yet. I'm feeling good. So I was like looking for like a cool route to run that hadn't really been run by a woman yet. And Yeah, there's this route in Death Valley, Shorty's Well to Telescope Peak. So you're going from not the technical lowest point in Death Valley, but really close to it. So it's really near Badwater Basin.
Okay.
So you're going from like negative 200 feet up to over 11 in a single pitch that goes like pretty much straight uphill.
Oh,
I mean, it's actually the longest single pitch of vert in the lower 48. It's more than Cactus to Clouds.
okay.
And you're going through these extreme temperatures. Like you're going from like, I started at like 3 in the morning and it was like 75 degrees at 3 in the morning. And then on top of the peak, it was like 11 degrees. And I was sliding on ice and it was crazy. Like the amount of like, I should have had crampons with me. I mean, it was pretty crazy. Like, really cool route. So I do have the female fastest time on that currently, I think, and I do want to go back and run it again because I way over prepared because I had no idea what I was getting into. But it's yeah, it's like 35 miles car to car about with yeah, I'd have to like look in my book, but I mean it's a pretty significant amount of like elevation gain.
Yeah, 15. I mean, so 15 miles or so and 11,000 feet of climbing. That's a lot of microclimates to pass through all in one.
Yeah, I mean, here's my book. I think it's yeah, you go from like negative 262 feet below sea level to let's see, 11,049 feet. Yeah, so it's a chunk. It's a chunk of like vert.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, and that was cool to do like solo and unsupported. And like one of the other cruxes is that there's no water. There is a water source, but it's like poisoned. it's got the skull and crossbones all over it. So it's like, so I brought so much water.
Oh my goodness. And you live in Jackson. You've done a lot of really cool things in Jackson. One of those is the picnic, which you know, for those who aren't familiar with the picnic, you know, I'll do my best to kind of explain it, but I'd love to hear you know, what it kind of opened up maybe mentally for you of what's possible for you physically.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, you ride your bike from Jackson swim across Jetty Lake, go up the Grand is I think the traditional route, and then you retrace those steps. So you're kind of free soloing up the Grand, retrace, descend, swim, bike back to home.
Yep, that's the basis of it. And then you can kind of take that formula and apply it to like different mountains and different peaks. My friend David, who came up with the picnic, he's actually, I think he just finished another picnic just now with Mount Moran, where he swims across Jackson Lake, which is crazy. I don't know, something you would like because there's a lot of swimming in that one. It's like 6 hours swimming or something crazy. Yeah. The idea is to do like a natural human-powered obstacle course. But yeah, in 2014, I was the first woman to do the picnic, and I've done 4 other ones since then. But that initial picnic was what made me realize how much I love endurance. And yeah, I just kind of took that like moving fast in the mountains formula and like really started expanding upon my trail running and mountain running. And yeah, then I started like, I don't know, that's kind of where it all started.
The endurance piece. But you prior to that really strong climbing background, or you spent a lot of time climbing prior to that. Did you grow up?
Yeah, I've been climbing for almost 28 or 29 years.
Okay, so it's kind of like climber and then found endurance through kind of the picnic. Is that that's fair? And now since then, the Teton Center Punch, you had to go with that last year. I mean, just an awesome line.
Yeah.
Help us understand what that looks like. I mean, what's the start? What's the finish? What are the numbers?
Sure. Let me see. I'll grab my nerdy little. Let me just get my notebook real quick.
Glimpse inside the brain of Kelly. What's in there?
Yeah, this is this notebook where I keep track of like all of my adventures and like what gear I brought, what food I brought. So we have the Teton Center Punch here. We did, me and my friend Fred Most, who is also another mountain runner. Yeah, so the Teton Center Punch is a route we came up with that runs along the hydrographic divide of the Teton Range. So it's going along the spine of the Tetons from almost near Yellowstone all the way to Teton Pass. And yeah, you summit a number of peaks. It's a pretty technical ridge line in a lot of places. Like you're definitely doing exposed 5th class climbing in a number of sections. And anyway, we came up with this route and we decided to go give it a shot last September. And it was epic, but we totally underestimated how difficult the northern section was going to be. Like on Google Earth and on the topo maps that we were looking at, it kind of seems pretty mellow, but when you get on it, it's a really technical ridgeline, and I actually almost fell pretty bad. I caught myself with one hand when a rock fell out from underneath me. And it took us a long time, and the most technical section of it is the Wigwam Traverse, which is right before Table Mountain, if you're going north to south. And we had scouted that before, like we thought we like had it pretty dialed of how to get through it, but we hit it in the dark. We had been planning on hitting it in the light, but like I said, we thought that, yeah, we underestimated how hard the northern section would be. So, yeah, we hit the wigwams, and then it was dark, and then it started drizzling, and you should see like my GPX from it because it looks like a starfish. We tried so many different ways to get through this one section, like the crux.
Yeah.
And after like 2 hours, like we're just wasting energy in the middle of the night, like trying to find the safe way through. And we just couldn't do it. So we ended up like crawling into my emergency blanket for like 2 hours and like shiver, like I wouldn't say shiver bivvying, but like I guess it was kind of a shiver bivvy, just like waiting for the light to come out so we could actually see around the corner where our headlamps wouldn't like reach.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we got up and then we were like, all right, guess we're gonna keep going. And yeah, we finished a Teton Pass. Took us 43.5 hours with pretty much consistent moving except for that like little emergency blanket in like a little rock hole for like a second, trying to hide from the rain.
Where does the mind go when you get out on these projects where you've done all the logistics, you may have caches, you've looked at the maps, but then you get out there and it's like nothing maybe like you could have anticipated just because you haven't been there. Like what the heck? How do you mentally frame, especially like maybe having a near miss fall? Like where does the head go? How do you kind of keep moving forward progress, you know, when you're in the thick of it like that?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I have a really strong mountaineering and climbing background, and I have like wilderness first responder courses and certifications under my belt. So I feel like I have a lot of knowledge to, like, if I get into a bad situation, like I can generally get myself out of it. And same with my partners. If I'm going to go in the mountains with a partner, I like them to be like, I like to have people who have the same risk threshold as I do.
Yeah.
So that we can like travel at the same speed and like take on the same challenges and know when to bail and how to get out safely. But yeah, I don't know, like the entire northern half we on-sighted because it's so hard to get to. I mean, it's like 17 miles to even get on the hydrographic divide from near Yellowstone.
Yeah.
So it's like, we were like, well, it's a ridge line and we can climb. And like, we were going completely like unsupported. So we had everything on our backs that we were carrying. I had like 7,000 calories on my back, like in my running vest. And we were like, all right, let's do it. And it's like, has this, like, we've been staring at the maps for so long. Like it's got this like really cool, like sense of adventure. Like, oh my God, I'm finally going to get to see, like meet this like ridge line that I've been staring at for so long.
Yeah.
So there's that like exciting element that kind of like keeps you going. But I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
well, it does, but it actually brings me to the future. And without giving too much away, you always, what I always admire about the lines that you draw or the projects that you take on is that there's always something next, right? There's always something that like, there's this innate thing, I think, that's in all of us or in a lot of people, some more than others, but you always have something on the horizon that you're like working towards or thinking about.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like up against that right now, are you, with a project that you're looking at and thinking about?
Yeah. I'm not sure when this video would drop, but probably in, I guess I can announce it on here. Sure. I kind of already announced it.
No pressure.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do the Wind River High Route solo and unsupported, probably in about a week, depending on the weather. Okay. I think I still have the female record on the other Wind River High Route variation, which is a little bit shorter and a little less technical, with my friend Ryan Burke. But yeah, I've spent the last couple weeks scouting and trying to get to know the Wind River High Route, and I'd really like to do it solo, unsupported. But I've never done something over 100 miles by myself. I'm not bringing sleeping gear. I'm going to bring an emergency blanket.
Okay.
And I've scouted it. I've done pretty much the whole route.
Okay.
in chunks. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna go because I've never pushed myself that far
What
before.
excites you about it, and what are you maybe apprehensive about?
Uh, it's just it's very long. It's very tedious. It's mostly off trail. There's a lot of loose boulders, so like there's a very high chance of like twisting an ankle or falling. My friend Gabe, who's also at some point going to be probably making a second attempt at it, he got really seriously injured last year. Was it last year? I think he busted a rib falling through a scree field. You're doing glacier crossings. You're on snow fields. Like you're going like up and down like this for like 100 miles.
Yeah.
So yeah, extreme fatigue and just really like hard ground to navigate. It's not a technical route. Like there's no fifth class climbing on it, and there's not really, I would say, fourth class climbing on it either. But it is just really, it's like a grind, you know?
Yeah.
And you are going up and over mountains. And so like, you got to be really careful. I think that the scariest part for me is if I do it at the time, if I leave the trailhead at like 2 a.m, that's going to mean that I can get across all the glaciers in the daylight, but it puts me on the scariest and steepest snowfield in the dark. And the snowfield filters into a lake, and then you have to walk around the edge of the lake, which right now still has snow on it. And if you fall on that snow, and I'm bringing micro spikes and poles, but if you slip on that snow, you're going to go underneath the ice in this lake.
Right.
And you will disappear, you know?
Yeah.
So and you can't really go above it. Like it's just the way that the terrain is, like you kind of are forced around the edge of this lake. And anyway, yeah, so I'm pretty terrified and I'm really excited, and I'm trying to like find a way to like frame it in my mind so that I don't like, so I can take it on in like a safe way. Like I'm like, okay, think of it as like a really quick backpacking trip, you know, or something like that. But I don't know.
You're onto something there though, because I feel like when you talk about something that big, I'm kind of like flying a kite at a park and you're going to outer space, you're like going for this huge objective. And when we talk about maybe the WURL, for example, for a lot of folks, not all too different, where it's kind of like, man, I'm going to get on this thing. What do I need to think about? Like, what do I need to be concerned about? But one thing that you said just kind of sparked something in my head is like that notion of just forward progress and like visualizing those difficult parts. As far as your success on the WURL, how did that look in your mind? I mean, obviously it excited you and scared you at that moment, I would assume.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the WURL.
Yeah, so I was looking at the WURL for a couple of years before I got to do it. And I definitely like started building up in my head as like this huge scary thing. And like, I know that I scouted the southern half with you, Andrew, which was really fun. Like we had a great time out there.
Yeah, that was plenty for me. We got done with that and I was like, that's good. Any more.
Oh man, so pretty. But yeah, like the northern part of the horseshoe, like before I had scouted that, it was like I built it up as like this big scary thing in my mind. And it is big and scary, but like it's cool to like, get to understand your fear and get to know those elements that scare you and be like, okay, actually, like I do understand what's going on now. And yeah, I mean, it took a while. Like the first time I did the WURL all the way through, I on-sighted the middle portion of it. That's when I started during the day, so I hit the middle portion of it, which in my mind was the less technical section in the dark. And that was an on-site. But by the time I got to Devil's Castle, I was like, oh shit, like,
yeah,
like I'm up here, I'm by myself, it's like fifth class climbing, and like I'm like looking down with my headlamp this way and looking down this way, and I'm like, wow.
not minor at all.
I was like, damn. And yeah, just like picking my way through that was actually like pretty time consuming because I just like didn't have time to scout it before. And then yeah, I finished that the first time in, it was like 31 hours or something like that. Like it was a while. And then I went back last year and did it again. And because I was familiar with the route and I knew like the slow points, I knew the points that I could jog and like, I wasn't going to waste energy, but I could move fast, Yeah. I dropped my time down significantly and got to be the first woman to do it in under 24 hours, which was really cool.
Absolutely. And for efficiency, it's always like a route like that. I always ask myself, like, how do you not get tired? Because that climber brain, which yours is really strong, you've been climbing for so long, but for a lot of the purist runners that I've talked to who are thinking about doing it, it seems like fatigue, like mental fatigue on a route that long is the biggest danger to an extent. I
Mhm.
mean, aside from getting on the route, what would you tell folks as far as like, how do I mentally get through
Mental.
this thing? Because you have so many of those moments like Devil's
Yeah.
Castle, where like those oh shit moments, and those fatigue you know, over a 24-hour period. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I like to look at the route in sections and splits, and I
okay,
can kind of compartmentalize that. So I'm like, all right, like first part of the world, get to Superior, you
uh-huh,
know? And I was like, I'm gonna try to get to Superior in under 7 hours. So I got there in like just under 7 hours, and I was like, okay, cool. Next chunk, do that in like this many hours, you know? And like
yeah,
you just kind of take these things on one at a time,
okay,
rather than like, I mean, you know, you start going up the WURL, and you get up on the twins, and you look across the horseshoe, and you're like, oh my god, like I have to go do all of that, and that's going to be like tomorrow when I get there,
yeah,
you know? And that's overwhelming. So you kind of just are like, all right, get on the ridge, you know, that takes a certain number of like, you know, 2 or 3 hours or whatever, get like up on the twins, all right, get to Superior,
yeah,
cool, got to Superior, all right. And that's usually where I keep my like first cache, is like,
yeah,
you know, part of pass or whatever. And then whip around, like there's like a more mellow section, you can kind of start jogging that, because like it's a little less technical, a little less bouldery, and you can move fast on that. And then the way that I do it, I go into the dark usually around that area. And then you're like, okay, cool, like next Devil's Castle, get to Devil's Castle, cool, did it, get to Snowbird, awesome, I'm on Snowbird, you know? And just
yeah.
do it in little chunks, and
Yeah.
then it just makes it a lot more like easy to mentally digest.
And fueling, does fueling matter? Everyone, it's such a, like nutrition is more sacred than religion. Like everyone's gonna have their own, like, you know,
Yeah.
intermittent fasting, or like, you know, I only eat nut butter, whatever it might be. But what, you know, for you, you're doing pushes that are like 40 hours, 24 hours. What does fueling look like for you? What's in the
You
backpack?
have to eat.
No
You
fasting.
have to eat. You have to eat
Right.
100 to 200 calories every hour. I don't care what it is.
I'm
Just get
on board.
food in your body.
Okay.
And that
Tell
can be really hard. Like, I get it. But what I do to make it easier for me is like, I'm not just eating gels the whole time, because like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I bring like really good sandwiches and like really good pastries. And like, yeah, okay, that stuff weighs a little bit more, but like my body is so happy to be like mowing like real food, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
mixed in with like the energy food, that like, you know, it makes it a lot easier, and it kind of gives you like a little happy boost
Yeah,
to,
totally. Something to look forward to.
yeah. And I like to save like, you know, like my big giant chocolate chip cookie until like I get through the crux or something like that. And then I'm like,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
the cookie now.
Okay.
And
No,
salt,
that
definitely
makes
salt.
that makes total sense. Now, training. There's a climbing mentor of mine a long time ago was like, you know, I was like really, and I'm always like forever into like training and preparation. I love it. I love that aspect of like projects and racing. Um, but his quote was always like, I'd ask him like, Ryan, how do you get ready? Like, how do I get stronger? And he's like, go do it. Like, you don't like when it
Mhm.
comes to like, you know, projects or whatever. But that being said, as it relates to the world, there is a certain level of preparatory. You know, we've talked about caches a little bit, nutrition, many goals along the way. But how does one prep for the world? I mean, is there a formula?
I mean, I would definitely say scout it ahead of time. Like,
Hmm.
I made that mistake of not scouting the middle section, and I made it through, but it cost me a ton of time and energy.
Okay.
And the nice thing about the WURL is that you can do it in like 3 sections, basically. Like, you can do the first section, like, and then bail down to Alta. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you can do the middle section like the same way, and then like you and I did like the last section of it. And
Right.
it's cool because you can very easily get on the ridge and scout it. So, um, you know, like get up there and like know what you're getting into. Like the very first time I tried to do the WURL, I did bring on another partner with me who was psyched to do it, and I don't think she was fully prepared, even though she lived in Salt Lake, and she said she was familiar with the route, and she was very confident in her ability to like take on technical ridge lines. But once she got up there, it was a mess. I mean, she was not psyched.
Yeah.
She, you know, admitted she was a little in over her head, and she didn't really know how to move fast on like boulders and loose boulders, and you know, and then we ended up like bailing around Alta. But you know, we were up on that ridge a long time because, you know, she was not ready. She like did not know like how to move fast on that kind of terrain. And so I think it's really important, like if you're going to do this, to like understand what you're getting into, because you know, even if you look at it on like Google Earth, it like doesn't look that technical. It kind of just looks like a slopey ridge, and it's like, no, like there's not a lot of running on this, you know. This is like crawling, you know. A lot of sections you're just like, you're using like your hands, you're using like your whole body to like move through this stuff, like you're chimneying like up and down, like little cruxy parts, like you should absolutely know like what you're getting into and understand what your body is capable of handling as far as water and nutrition, because there is no water up there unless you like cache it or have someone bring it to you. Like there's no natural water up there.
Yeah.
So you need to understand like how to fuel for it, because you can bonk super hard. And I know people who have like had major bonking like issues up there and just been completely depleted, you know, in the middle of the night, and been like, oh my God, like I had no idea like how much I had to eat, how much I had to drink, like I didn't get enough salt into my body to like process the water, like, you know. So I think it's really important to understand your body and, you know, make a plan to get out of there if, you know, if you do have like an issue where you just completely like, you know, bonk and run out of energy, you know.
The partner thing you mentioned just is interesting too, because you've done some really cool stuff with partners. You've also done, as a female, done a lot of, you've kind of paved the way for a lot of endurance oriented mountain athlete female records. Partners is a tricky thing. Do you reckon you end up doing a lot of stuff solo because it's cleaner and easier, or what's the motivation for you as far as solo pushes? Because your push on the WURL, which was really impressive, that was a solo push. So what's the motivation for solo versus partner?
Well, I really like the element of like having that really real, authentic endurance experience, like usually in nature. Like it feels very like primal, and I know that I possess the knowledge and capability. Like I know accidents happen, like accidents can always happen, but generally speaking, I know that I possess the knowledge and experience to get through things by myself. And I like to take on that challenge, you know, to not depend on anyone else. So it's really cool. Like you know, it's such a different experience when you go with someone and when you don't. Like there's nobody to depend on. There's no one for that like emotional support, you know, which is a huge element of it. Like, you know, and it's weird because like I'll go through these like emotional highs and lows, like especially when I'm really strung out. I'm like, you know, I'm upset. I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like so lonely out here, but it's also so real.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I know that I'm strong enough to get through this, you know, so like what's the next step? Like, what do I need to do? And sometimes that's just like physically like putting one foot in front of the other, like over and over again. And, you know, other times it's like remembering like, you know, my friends and my support crew. And I'm like, okay, like I know that they're rooting for me. Like, I know I can get through this. So, you know, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, not just women, but like people are so much more capable than they understand, you know, and, you know, it might take baby steps to get there, and that's good, because that's the smart and safe way to do it. But like, we are so much more capable than we realize, you know, and that can be like applied to any platform. But like, as far as like athletics and endurance goes, like you have so much strength inside of you, and you can push yourself like, you know, through these barriers and like completely like expand your like human experience.
For those, and that probably it lends itself over and over to this really powerful experience that you come away from the mountains with inspiration. For those listening who don't know, you're an incredible artist. You're in your studio right now. As far as inspiration for artwork, is there a dovetail there as far as these experiences that you seek out, these situations you put yourself in, when ink hits paper? Is that something that comes as a direct result, or where do you find inspiration for your artwork?
I think it's a cycle. I mean, like I love seeing beautiful landscapes, and like having like a really intimate emotional relationship with that landscape is really inspiring, and I love to like translate that, you know, onto the paper as best I can. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I need both, like art and mountains. They go together, like being out. I'd say it's like being out in nature, you know, and the endurance thing is just like an element of like my relationship with nature. But it's really cool to have these like incredibly humbling and beautiful experiences, and really raw experiences, especially when like everything else is stripped away and you're just by yourself, and like you have no support crew, and you're just like me in the wilderness right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's it's a really, really cool experience to have, and I love trying to share that with illustrations.
And you have, for people who are listening, where can they get your children's book? Because it's awesome. My nephew has it. My best
Oh,
friend's kids
thanks.
have it.
I have
Where?
one. Oh, let me grab one. I'll show you.
Yeah, let's see the cover. For those of you out there, this is a must-have read for, well, I don't know what the age range is. I loved it, and I'm not young.
It's like a 4 to 6 like reading reading level. It's a
Okay.
children's book. It's like a picture children's book. Not a picture book. It has a story, but yeah, it's about like back to nature. It's a back to nature theme.
And where do people find your artwork and the book?
KellyHalpin.com.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
and you can find me on Instagram the same way, and it has a link to my website. Like, you can either like search Kelly Halpin, or my Instagram is Kai Halpin, KYEHALPIN. So that'll like, I have a link to my website on there.
We'll put it in the show notes. Kelly, I am so excited to see what you do in Wyoming,
Oh,
and years to come. Keep inspiring folks. You're doing an awesome job.
thank you so much, Andrew. It was really nice having coffee with you this morning.
Hey, cheers. We'll see you soon.
All right, awesome, Andrew.
Okay. Ciao,
Bye.
ciao. We'll see you.